Hello everyone, my name is Naveed Moeed and today I'm going to talk to you about globular clusters and our galaxy. So, most of what you see in the night sky, as many of you know, are other stars like our sun. They are big fiery balls of gas, but sometimes they are not just that. Sometimes they're actually collections of stars in a relatively small space. Now, you'd think, well, there are no stars in and around us. We can't possibly be in a globular cluster. But the fact is that if you were looking from very, very far away at where we are actually in very close proximity to our neighbors, and therefore also in a cluster of stars. So, let's have a look at how we look at the universe first. So this is the ATOF projection of the Earth, and we tend to map the sky onto it. And this is what you see. This is the Milky Way. You see the disk of the Milky Way. And if we have a look at this, then our sun's location is somewhere over here, and then we have the bulge of the Milky Way, and then you get these globular clusters. So the span of this whole distance is huge. And as you can see, some of these globular clusters lie outside of the disk of our Milky Way. So a better way to have a look at this is to have a look at it just a little bit side on. And as you can see, some of the objects that you'll be seeing tonight, M30, M15, for instance, they are based slightly outside of the disk of the galaxy, so the disk of the Milky Way. And what this leads us to believe is that these globular clusters form outside of the disk of the Milky Way and tend to form their own little neighborhood, as it were, and tend not to join with the rest of the party. And in a future video, I'll explain a little bit more about why this happens. So what is a star cluster? So first of all, the stars are all formed at the same time. And they're all at the same distance, roughly. They're also formed from the same material, and the only difference is their masses. So one globular cluster might be formed of certain materials, and then another globular cluster might be formed of other materials, and they really are their own kind of distinct little neighborhoods. So, for example, H and Chi Persei are a double cluster in Perseus. Now, that means that they're made of similar materials because they're relatively near to each other, and they're both in the constellation of Perseus. And while from our perspective, they're relatively near, they're still many, many thousands, possibly millions of light years apart. Then we come to open clusters. So Messier 35 and NGC 2158 are open clusters. And the difference in open and globular is basically just how spaced out they are. And sometimes they're a little bit more spaced out, and sometimes they're a little bit nearer. One of the confusing things is that sometimes this has to do with our perception. The way that we might be looking at it might look like an open cluster from where we are, but someone looking at it from the other side of our galaxy might be looking at it differently. And it might look more globular to them, more kind of clumped together. So open clusters contain about 1,000 stars, roughly, and that's not that many. They're loosely gravitationally bound together. They're younger than globular clusters, and they're more enriched in heavy elements. Messier 50, which I think that you're looking at tonight, is an example of an open cluster. Globular clusters, on the other hand, contain up to 100,000 stars and extremely old, billions of years old, and they're low in heavy elements. So one of the things that we think happens is that many of these clusters start off pretty clumped, very globular, and then over time tend to space out a little bit, and sometimes one neighborhood of tightly packed stars in a globular cluster might start off really clumped together and then slowly spread out. And then you have galaxies as well, and there are so many galaxies to choose from, and sometimes they exist in clusters too. Some galaxies that are counted in the Messier catalogue of objects include M51, NGC 1300, and NGC 6946. So, I hope that's given you a little bit of insight into what clusters are, and I hope to be talking to you again soon.